There is smoke coming from the Sistine Chapel where the conclave is underway. Cardinals from around the world are gathered to choose the next leader of the Roman Catholic Church. And just a few hours into the conclave, as night fell, you could see black smoke coming from the chimney. It's a signal that the cardinals had voted but had not decided on who will be the next pope. Joining us now with more insight on the process of choosing a pope is Matheson Miller, Senior Research Fellow at Acton Institute, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be with you.
First question, explain for us what's actually going on inside the Sistine Chapel during the conclave.
Right. Well, I mean, in one sense, what's going on is there's pretty much a standard process, right? All of the cardinals of the Catholic Church, there are 133 electors. If you are over 80 and you're a cardinal, you're not an elector. So there are about 133 cardinals going in, and there's a whole process, and they go in conclave. It's the key. They're locked in, and they're in. All their phones are taken away, and it's private discussion where they begin to talk and vote on the Pope. Now, of course, what actually happens in a conclave, since I'm not a cardinal, I've never been in one, no one can actually know how it all pans out and how the cardinals talk to one another. But the process is pretty straightforward and part of canon law.
And what we're all waiting for is that white smoke to appear. We saw black smoke earlier today, but when we see that white smoke, what does it signal to the world?
Well, that signals that the cardinals have elected the next Bishop of Rome, who is the Pope, the Vicar of Christ on earth, Catholics believe. And so soon after that, the Pope will actually appear. He will take a name, and he will appear out on the loggia, and you'll have a very famous announcement, Habemus Papam, that is, we have a Pope. And then his name will be announced, first his cardinal's name, and he has taken the name of whatever name he chooses, and he will come out right on the top of St. Peter's and give a blessing to the city and to the world.
And why don't we go now to this name-taking process and how very important that is for the next pope when they decide what name they will choose. What does that say about the pope as a person and possibly about their leadership style when they take this name?
So I think the name is very important. If you look at the last names, of course, Pope Francis had a real kind of devotion to Saint Francis of Assisi. You could see how he wrote on the environment. Saint Francis of Assisi is often considered the patron saint of the environment. And so that was, I think you could see that there. Benedict XVI had a real devotion to Saint Benedict, who is the founder of Western monasticism and the founder of what's called the Benedictine order. Saint Benedict, there were actually many Benedicts, so he there was also probably some connection back to some of the earlier Benedicts, but Saint Benedict was the patron of Europe, and a lot of you could see, for example, real connection to deep European roots of Christianity and the connection between Judaism and Hellenism and how Christianity emerged. You saw that in Benedict XVI. John Paul II, of course, took the name of his immediate predecessor, who only lived for a very short time. And so there's the name for the Pope usually has a connection to maybe a saint or a previous Pope that they have a certain connection to, and it also can, in fact, set out some of their leadership style, perhaps, but at least some of their vision for what they think the church needs and what the church needs to hear. And of course, the key job of the Pope is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and to teach and to govern. And so one of the things that the Pope is supposed to do is just make it clear and also be a spiritual guide, as we've seen the popes do, especially in the last 100 years. With the news, we see the popes, they have a global presence now.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see what name he takes.
It sure will. And we know 133 cardinals are electors, and they are part of this process, and they have to reach a consensus before we see the white smoke. What is considered a consensus?
So in this case, consensus is, I think, 89 votes. So once they have 89 votes for the same person, that's considered a consensus, and then that will mean that the cardinal is the Bishop of Rome. And of course, you've probably heard this. Everyone says it. But there's a famous line that says, if you go into the conclave a pope, you come out a cardinal. So it's always hard to predict who's going to be elected.
Right, right. And very quickly, and there's really no timeline or timetable. Back in the 13th century, it took a couple of years, and most recently, it has taken maybe a couple of days. You want to give us any guesstimate on how long you think it'll take before we see the white smoke?
Well, thanks for asking me for a guesstimate, since again, I'm not a cardinal. Like, everybody has something to say, but a lot of it's speculation. But if you had a guess, I would say, I think it's probably could be fast, but maybe 3 days, 4 days. I think some of the cardinals haven't got to know each other very much. There were not a lot of consistories with cardinals meeting during Francis's pontificate. So I know in the last several weeks, days, they've been getting to know each other. I would guess maybe, hopefully Friday, maybe Saturday. We'll see, but one never knows. So don't put your money on my prediction.
Well, one thing for sure, sir, all eyes are on the Sistine Chapel, and we'll be following it closely. Thank you, Michael Matheson Miller, Senior Research Fellow at Acton Institute there in Grand Rapids. Thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me.